So hello and welcome to another video in this series of the MAX7219. I think this is episode number 11. So what I've done now, I have added a temperature and humidity sensor into the desk clock. I've also added a buzzer and I've added in scrolling messages as it was requested by one of my subscribers. So I'm going to run through the code and then we see what happens. So just read up here, it will tell you what I've been doing. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, please watch some of the earlier episodes and it will probably come clear what we're talking about because I'm not going to go through every line in detail. So this is a standard. We are installing the Wi-Fi libraries, etc. Prola. Now, remember in the config file to get the Wi-Fi working, you'll have this file up here in the GitHub repository. Just add in your Wi-Fi credentials in there and it will get you onto the your home Wi-Fi. So we've added in I've added in a DHT11. Now it's not a particularly good sensor. If you want to buy one, get a DHT22. It's a slightly better sensor. But if you're going to send a space rocket up into the moon, certainly don't use one of these sensors to record humidity and temperatures. They're not very reliable, but they are very cheap, and for a desk clock it's good enough. So I've connected onto pin 2, which is D4. Here we're just setting up what type of sensor I'm using. Now this one is the number of readings in between the time interval between the readings. Now I've made this very long. You can do it every 2 seconds, but because you're seeing in the way the clock is working, I've got no need to record it every 2 seconds. And all that does, it slightly warms up the sensor, and you can get misreadings. Now, as we go down in the code, you'll find that I've added an offset to try and get the temperature and humidity readings a bit closer to actual readings. So a little bit of text here about the sensors. This is a great article here if you have got time to go and read it about how you can calibrate your sensors. I've connected the buzzer to number 5, which is D1. Don't connect it to D3 or GPI 0 because when the chip is loading its code, it will buzz all the time. So as I found out, some floats here to hold the temperature and humidity readings, some chars which we've covered before to store the information we're going to put to the screen, some ints because we're changing chars into ints so we can use the actual numbers to do some maths if we need it in the code. The string here is used to change the clock from 24-hour to 12-hour clock, so that helps the people. If you live in the United States, they like using 12-hour. I'll always like to use 24-hour. This is needed by Pro. Now this is new, this line here, because we haven't got a degree C symbol or degree F symbol in our font file. This is just a easy way to create those fonts for you. This is setting up the timer of saying only read the temperature sensor after this time has elapsed, and we've set the time further above. So this is how we go from metric to imperial. This is setting up our display. You've got a choice of 4 here. Look at I think video number 2 or 3. It will tell you you've got a choice of 4 settings here. This is just setting up our WeMOS D1 Mini. Your pins may not be the same. This is setting up Parola. This is some basic numbers in 24-hour clock to dim the display automatically. There is no light sensor yet in this clock. So this will just say at 8 o'clock in the evening, dim the display. At 7 o'clock in the morning, put the display back to maximum brightness. And here we say maximum brightness is 3 and minimum brightness is 0, because this goes from, let's put it here, 0 to 15. That's the range you've got. Now I'm powering this whole thing from the D1 Mini USB, so I wouldn't recommend going much brighter than 4. Otherwise, the chip will probably start getting very, very hot and you don't want to damage a little chip. Now, I mentioned offsets earlier here. All I've done, I've got some uh, humidity and temperature sensors, which are quite accurate in themselves. And all I've done is use that position by the sensor in the clock and recorded what the offset is and added this offset into the maths, which we'll cover a bit later. This is centigrade temperature offset. Humidity, I'm not using Fahrenheit, but I've put it in here for you guys that want to change this to Fahrenheit. There's the maths that it will change it to centigrade offset to Fahrenheit offset, and the humidity offset is 2. Um, since I've put the temperature sensor in the clock, I've actually drilled ventilation holes in the clock body at the back and in the side. And initially, I'll show you when we get the clock up and running that I had the sensor flush with one of the sides of the clock, but that tended to sense the temperature of the inside of the matrix clock, because obviously the matrix is giving off heat as well as the D1 Mini, especially when I was uploading code to the chip. It would make the readings go higher or lower, depending whether you look at centigrade or humidity in the sensor. So this is setting up Wi-Fi. If you're not sure what this is, read these down here to find your zone. Set up the MPT server, the closest one to you. Again, that's explained in other videos, but it's all explained in this message here. So this is one way of putting messages onto the screen. So put your messages in here, and it works out how long the message is. In here, I've tested one that is 100 long characters long here. If you, to save you counting them, there's a website here that if you go to this link, you can copy and paste your message in here and find out how many characters is in the string. This is just putting it into program memory, so then we can suck it back out of that when we need it. This is setting up the DHT sensor. So this is now how we get the temperature out of the sensor. And I've put in a small millis statement here to say if we haven't passed the time that we've set above, which was 28 seconds, because you'll see when the clock is running, the display scrolls round and there's a lot more than 28 seconds between it reading the time and it showing the temperature and the humidity. So I've just put in a long one. Say the minimum you can use on these sensors is every 2 seconds, but as we're not displaying or recording temperature or humidity, we don't need to read it very often. So if it hasn't reached this time, it just misses this out and goes, well, misses all this section out and carries on the program. I've put here a little overflow calculation, because if the humidity reads 100, I can't get 100% RH that you'll see when the clock's running on the screen. So it will push some of the characters off the left-hand side of the screen. So to limit it to only 2 numbers showing, I'm saying if the humidity is greater or equal to 100, only show 99%. Now, if it's 99%, you're probably standing in the shower, and I wouldn't recommend taking one of these into the shower. But yeah, I think you get what I mean. So this is reading the temperature sensor and recording the Celsius. And then I'm saying Celsius equals Celsius, i.e. what it's just read, minus the temperature offset that I've recorded up above. And you have to change your offset subject to testing your sensor, because they're all slightly different. This is a way I've left it in here to read Fahrenheit, and when you do the maths for your Fahrenheit offset, it will do the maths for you. And then if it can't read the humidity temperature, it will tell you on the serial monitor that it's failed, but so far it's never failed. This is converting chars into ints, so we can use hour, minutes, and seconds. Easier to do some maths with. These are some serial print statements that I was just using to check what was going wrong at the time in the code. So I've left it in there. Just uncomment them, and the serial monitor will show you what I mean. We've used these statements before, and this is just putting the hours, the 2 dots, and the minutes into this sprintf statement. This is a way that we're getting the messages. So it gets the message in the section we've added them above, and it puts them into a char, and then it puts it into this sprintf, so then we can display on the matrix. So that's message 1, 2, 3, and a short date here, which we covered when we go down in the code. There's the explanation of that function if you're not used to that. Now we're setting up in the setup. So start the Wi-Fi. This is the digital right of the buzzer. So when it's high, the buzzer will be off because I've connected it to 3.3 volts and one of the pins. So every time the pin goes low, i.e. it's connecting it to a negative or minus voltage, it will work. So that's that. This is the MPT service which covered in videos before. This is the buzzer pin, so we set it as an output, which is important. Then we're beginning the display, clearing the display, making sure that it doesn't all light up as we power it up. So as we've done before, this is setting zones. Now we're only using one zone, but I've left in how you create another zone, because probably in another video we'll start using zones, but we're not in this one. Set the font to a basic font. This is the included font in the Parola library, and setting the intensity to max brightness, which we set to 3 above. This is setting up Parola. This is the way the information is expected to come in to make it work. Now, this is interesting. I've left this in because, yeah, this is for another project, and I'm not going to tell you what that is, but yeah, I need to flip the screen upside down, and that's one way of doing it. But say, if you want to know how all that works and what I'm doing, yeah, please like and subscribe, and it all come clear what that is doing. Now, this is saying that every time a dollar sign or the ampersand sign appears, we're going to take those out, and we're going to put in the symbols that we describe up above, and there's the values of the digits. So then we're going to start the temperature and humidity sensor. Now we're into loops. The first thing we do, we get the temperature. So let's go and have a look at that one now. So ignore all these case statements. I know it looks scary, but it's not really. So where did I put it? No, there was no function. Okay. I thought, what did I function for that? Get temperature. Let me just see. There must be one. Let's find it. So all I did there was I highlighted the word and then Control F on a Windows machine, and it says there's 2 instances where get temperature appears. Now let's go down. So yeah, here's the function. So get temperature. Oh, that's, yeah. So that's going back to what I covered up earlier about, if the millis time has passed for 28 seconds, then it will read all those out. So if it hasn't, if 28 seconds hasn't elapsed since it came here last time, it would just ignore all those. That was that. So let me go back to the loop. So the update time function, we covered that in the last video. So it just goes down to the function, gets the time off the internet, and it will update itself. So it doesn't keep going, every 5 to 10 seconds to the NTP server. It goes there once an hour, I think every 12 hours. So this is the statement. This is why we needed the integers out of the char arrays to be able to dim display. So I'm just saying if the hour int is greater or bigger than dim int, or time or the hour int is less or equal than bright time, then it will change the brightness. So that was 8 o'clock, value of 20, brightness of 7. Sorry, at 8 o'clock, and the brightness value, sorry, the time value is 7, then it will go down to the minimum intensity of 0. Else it will set the screen to a maximum brightness of 3, which we put up earlier. These are just needed to work out when the flashing dots would appear in between the hours and minutes in the display. Now, this is how I've worked out to get scrolling messages. Now, this is only an example, and you wouldn't normally have the time display, and then I think I've got 7 messages or 6 messages after that. So just an example to show different text effects and just give you an idea of how to use it, really. So you could, if you wanted to use, say, show the time, and then instead of 7 messages appearing directly after that, you could either make a millis timer and come back to case 0. So it would show the time, go to this message we're covering in a minute, and then go back to the time, stay there for a little while, and then go to another case statement. But that's up to you to work out. This is just to give you the basic idea of how it works. So here we are, just setting the font. Now, be careful. Some of these fonts, and it caught me out just this afternoon, some of these fonts only have the digits, but not all characters. So if you change the fonts and you're getting rubbish on the screen you can't read, check inside the fonts, and the way you do that, so this is the F4x7. So we go to the font file here. Now the first font, the smallest font here, 3x5, has all the characters, the numbers, so that works well. But the one I've made, and I should update, and I need to do the video on the font files, that's 3x7. See, that doesn't have them. So if you change the font to 3x7, it hasn't got, see, it's got 0 to 9. It's got some of the A, B's and C's, because I was going to use that for the AM, PM indicators. But then look, there's no of the other letters. So if you use that and you get rubbish on the screen, you need to change your font. Then this is the millis routine to say if the seconds have been 15 and the seconds have been less or equal than 45, then go and do something. Now, the reason I've chosen 15 and 45 instead of saying 0 and 30 is that with these numbers, so we're waiting here 30 seconds, and then we're going to scroll off to the other information on the screen. If you chose 0 and 30, every time the clock rolls over between, say, 7:59, you would never see 8 o'clock appear. And it's quite nice when we get onto other code to see all the digits change or all the digits roll over. Now, I'm not going to say any more about the rollover because that's going to come up in another video, but that's quite exciting. So this is just setting up text effects, which we've covered in other videos. So once this millis function has once this time function has said, okay, go and do it, it will go and do it. And then it will start rolling down these case statements. And what will happen is these case statements will display messages on the screen one after the other until we get to the end of the case statement, and it will go back to the time. So in the first one, we're going to display the short date, Wednesday, March the 15th, 11, 23 seconds, and the year. That's an inbuilt one. I'll show you how that's created here. And we put that in the day chart. Then this is just the effects we're having. Then this is saying once you've done that, let the display equal one more. And you have to make sure that these case numbers are sequential. Because that's how it works. So we start off at 0, if you notice, and then we go to 1 through to 7, I think it is. And then once it's finished, we break. And then what happens is it goes straight into the next one. So here we set the font back to the standard font, because what we're doing here, we are doing full chart. Now, this is one that I've created because I didn't like showing the seconds, because it's meaningless really, because that when it's scrolling, these seconds won't count up, because it's just a moment in time being captured, and it will just show the second. So if it takes 2 seconds to scroll across the screen, that's not going to change. So I created my own full chart, which will read the full name of the day, 15th of March, rather than short name, March 15th, then the year, and then hours and minutes. And yeah, well, I'll show you that in a second when we get down to the bottom of the code. Message 1 is just reading out from where we stored the messages. So wherever they were. So here it'll take this message, and then it will message through with a long message. And so that'll be message 1. Then it will scroll message 3, and it just takes it out from where we've just come from and reads out message 3 in the standard font, because it's needing all the characters to do it. Then we're changing back to a small font just for demonstration, no other reason than that. And we, instead of just scrolling, we're going to scroll to the left, and then once it's finished, it will scroll down. If you wanted it to scroll to the left, pause, and then go down, you would have to do something like this. You could put a pause statement in saying pause 2000 here, and it would scroll